Just outside was one of those wee trees that run through London like rats, rammed in a cage without a mouse wheel. Swinging his tiger carcass side to side, Musa the Syrian went out, broke a twig, peeled it and started to brush his teeth with it. Passing Zeev's skinny white shirt on the way back, he says, "I am not ashamed. Relax. Be proud." Zeev held up a newspaper. "You warned 50 coffee-drinking witnesses you'd blow up the military orchestra. Then, without moving, you did it. Now that I call remote control." Smirking, as if a smirk had never left his face, Zeev dropped the paper on the table. "Concert Carnage," read the headline, and the band did not play on. Right enough, there'd been a big explosion somewhere just after our boss had arrived. We'd not been in a position to take notice. But heat had now twisted the parking meters into strange shapes. They drooped like bashful daisies, grouped round Cleopatra's Needle and Regent's Park bandstand just at the end of our street. "Someone up there is calling our bluff," said Musa, his mouth tightening into a fist. Farid gave a cry. "We joke with them, and they make our joke a joke." He began to crack things and punch dishes in the sink to get himself in the killing mood, to stop anyone else taking him out first, you know. Now me, I was remembering the Ram's Island eel that shot up my spine when the night shift threatened the umpapa, how I thought, a military band. Now there's a target I can work with. We all stood there, trying to call up the sound of the explosion once more, the band and its irritating sound that had suddenly ceased. Musa and Zeev lit fags and listened for the bass note and the remembered boom of detonation. A memory began speeding at us in a straight, dotted line. And with that, you could see the explosion happening again out through the metal detector doorframe of our caff. A disintegration that was worse than carnage. A floppy cremation, worse than the loss of some blood bladder of a city. Growing up in a great tree, in an explosion of digitised gambits. Great chandeliers of fractured plate glass, a splash caught in mid-air. Pink faces came bobbing along the street, studded with sharp reddened diamonds, as if for an instant a new and sparkling race had been born. Fat women, hearing of a death, laying themselves flat on the pavement and touching it like an unknown surface, climbing the ground with their arms and stilettoed legs. And now, after the vigils, you actually heard the Kamalyi. Great open insurance buildings, their elevator things snapping, a chrome lift rocketing down the steel stamen of a death lily. The blast weaving in and out of Soho sex shops where the girls hang pension books on hooks with the blouse they bought at lunch hour. A detonation running in a dingy tide along the Strand where you are always ankle deep in the filthy thin ghost of a Thames flood, in the worn bloom of Edwardian supper luxury and the saddest musical advices. A detonation running in a dingy tide along the Strand where you are always ankle deep in the filthy thin ghost of a Thames flood, in the worn bloom of Edwardian supper luxury and the saddest musical revivals. The sound shooting up through the hunger striker's spine of Regent Street, then backing out of Portobello doorways like mafia men laundering marquetry tables. It was a noise that chases life like thunder. Zoo noises of a great disaster. The armoured clank was either giant sheets of glass or the dank cries of huge zoo mammals. The dinosaur breasts that are beaten whenever firemen, nurses and war animals explode, when the carnage finally gets to the old pros. The real noise a bird makes when a cat tosses it paw to paw. Not a cheap synth, but a vast bellow. The rattle of massive strong boxes and safe made of red brick chunks landing on human lungs. Bodies shooting like fresh pasta through the wire of glass fire doors. Hotel beds dropping hundreds of feet in the night. And finally, the sound of mangled brass pipework, of tubas, horns and saxophones, now stuffed with gobbets of flesh. Somewhere in the city, a van was now a torn and flaming playpen. Moose's cologne pulsed slowly on his smooth cheeks, his eyes shot side to side in his pigment wraparound visor. "This is libel! This is just immature, ridiculous libel," said Hamdi. "Maybe ahna we go home?" Home. The word dropped into the silence like a calamity. A watcherwoman at the front, whose husband had his arm in a sling, laughed like a tinkling razor. "He'll want his meat cutting for 2 months." Zeev looked at Hamdi with contempt. "Farid sold his kidney here. You think he's just going to leave it here?" "Sah, my kidney is a full citizen," said Farid proudly. "It lives in high-waisted trousers. It watches girls by the well in Whiteleith. It's my true brother. It paid for my master's degree in America." "That's nothing," said Musa. "My academic advisor had an organ scholarship to Oxford." Gloomlit commuters, passing with carrier bags and briefcases, had started a tribute pile of cellophane flowers for the dead. Every card read, "Just ordinary folk." Bah! At that, a great unperfumed wail went up through the orange night clouds of the city. It was the sound of a Saatchi and Saatchi colliery band jammed up the green neon-lit East End minarets. It was the wail of banshees with black shawls on their head, either near Irish bog walls or arid Arab deserts. Bah! Like life was just a teddy bear that bleated on a tilt switch. Outside we could see all the other waiters watching, dark heads sticking out of their takeaway windows. Their multiple ice cream flavours were steaming middens of oppressive sound. Dark heads that would sign murder confessions just to get legally into a British jail. Heads craning at the fleet of black and white checkered police vans that had pulled up down the street where the monument now flanked Tottenham Court Road. The taxmen, still in their good suits, stood opposite and did nothing. The police were jumping out of those vans with their bitmapped caps in some kind of hunt or raid, at which Arabs and Ottoman illegals started bang, bang, lambegging their bin lids outside the chrome window blinds of the food boutiques. And a voiceover broke in, "That Snedrim didn't cut it," while Gatwick charter jets churned a fly past overhead. They held a stream of people screaming as they rode in these steel aerosols away from sweatshop and detention, back to Arabia, back to the sickle cell of the crescent moon. Suddenly we could now see that under the pile of bristling cellophane tribute flowers lay a pair of slaughtered black and white goats, limbs neatly tied together. They were like long-haired hairy hearthrugs at the dry cleaners, with their throats cut into gaping fish mouths and their cloudy, gobstopper eyes gone shabby with death. Ah, for God's sake, would you tell me what kind of a cult she swore I'm stuck in? Catch yourself on, world. Farid grabbed one goat's teat and let fly his throat. "Zobibi ummuk, they have murdered our milk supply." Musa quietly touched the crimson pool around the goats. It was red, it was thick as phone box paint. "Aye, it really is a three-dimensional substance, blood. Wait till you try blood libel, my friend," said Zeev. A fury grew in Musa. His taut olive claw reached at Farid, and the Beiruti gave a terrible howl as Musa tried to rip his hand off the goat's outpit. "Hey, I said no stockpiles. What else you have downstairs? Antibiotics? Tryptophan? Nuclear briefcase? You're gonna get us fucking executed. You're gonna..." Bess, I swear to God. Arkasha! Farid called to the basement. Arkasha the Russian pushed through the crowd, his glowworm face luminous in a gentle nudging way, looking down at his dead animal part share, bloody and hairy on the pavement. Behind Arkasha came a sickly little lutin voice of a watcher telling him, I think you'll find this a bit of a queue here. Arkasha pulled up his crystal blue eyes and looked at the line of people stretching back to Leicester Square. Where? He inquired. But then his super A-tender moustache, its black wax wings jerked and plummeted like a Greek flight victim's. Where's Hamdi? Hamdi! The Syrian and Lebanese faces drained. Shit! Musa breathed. Anyone want to do his dishes? Said Zeev. I felt Hamdi's absence, cold and whistling, like a smart missile's nightmare of free fall. Nothing was left of the Egyptian boy with his beautiful single gull-wing eyebrow. Just 2 paper plates he'd written on and taped to the wall. The first said, Soup of the day, £1.50. The next said, Fear of the day, £2.50.